Welcome everyone. I'm Greg Robinson. I'm the chief curator here at BIMA, and Dasha Moore, who works with us, and I have the great pleasure of working with Nikki to host the show and watch her vision come alive. And I'm not going to do a big introduction. I know several of you know her, but also the work is so much a reflection of her life and experiences. And it's very, I find this to be a very beautiful show and also really complicated. And I want to just say, I appreciate you sharing the personal histories you have and helping us to find words to convey them with visitors at different ages and from different circumstances. But it's just been a wonderful journey, and it's also been, BIMA is, part of what we're really hoping to do here is be a platform for artists who really deserve a lot more exposure and maybe are putting together bodies of work for the first time on a large scale. And this is also a good example of that. She started actually as a candidate for our Spotlight Juried show for the Beacon Window Gallery. We just had picked one piece because we were looking for installations for the window gallery, and Nikki was one of 87 people that applied, different artists or collaborating groups that wanted to have a chance at the window. And the jury, there were 6 of us, and we could not decide among the 87 which one we would pick, and we ended up picking 3 in no particular order. Sean Parks was given that summer because he had a very colorful, we thought there was a very summery kind of thing, but there was really no criteria to the order we presented them. Bella Kim was also part of it. She had a recent installation, and now Nikki Jabbora-Barber. And we're, the more that I looked at this one image that we were going to pick, I had a lot of questions like, there's something really behind this, and I know that Nikki has presented some of it, but I thought I really wonder what else is happening here. And the more I was able to talk with her, even over a brief period, it was clear that she had a vision, a body of work, a whole wonderful exhibition that if she had a little more time, she could put it together as she has done here. So we scheduled the show out, and today when you're downstairs, you'll see the results of it. So I just want to thank Nikki very much for working with us to expand that. I would like to, do I move the slides? I'd like to do a land acknowledgement, and it's on the screen. I wanted to speak personally about the relationship that BIMA has been able to develop with the Suquamish tribe. They've been very supportive of our interests in diverse programming and have helped us and helped fund 3 major exhibitions since 2013 with Indigenous artists. We draw from what we call the Salish Sea area with the Indigenous artists, and we've had 3 different theme shows, and this next year in 2026, Craft in America in Los Angeles has declared the year a year of craft, handwork. We're one of something like 150 art museums around the country working on exhibitions, and we will be presenting an Indigenous craft show with the help of Robin Saigo and Barbara Lawrence and others from the Suquamish tribe. So I think the land acknowledgement is really important as we're on ancestral land of the Suquamish people. And I'm just so appreciative of their willingness to help us do more and do better related to Indigenous artists and artists in general. So without further ado, please have a seat. So I'd like to introduce Nikki Jabbora-Barber and again invite all of you to join us for the reception downstairs.
Thank you, Greg. think my period's gonna start. I feel very emotional. I super appreciate just being able to have the space and a literal microphone for the work that I get to do. Let's see. Okay. I do a lot on Instagram and many social media things. If you wish to follow me, don't already, highly encourage it. But I am Nikki Jabbora-Barber. I use she, her pronouns. This is my formal artist statement, but my informal is I was raised on Toad Lake in Bellingham, Washington. Pretty poor. My family is a hunting and fishing family. I've known how to fish for trout since I was like 4 or 5 years old. You don't have to pay for a fishing license when you're under the age of 15. Yeah. I feel most comfortable being in the woods. I love backpacking. This is me when I was like 10 years old. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do in the world, and that's more of like where I come from, is like being in touch with the space and land up here. My dad's side of the family comes from Sweden. Did I skip one? No. My mom's side of the family comes from Lebanon, in a small town called Esquinta. It's a little mountainous region. This is Lebanon, near Syria and Palestine. For those who still don't know, you should. This is where it's situated in a larger global context. I share all that because, you know, I look the way I look, and the title of the show is called Wait, What Are You? Because I get asked, since, you know, I can understand words, what am I? Like, why do I look the way I look? I was born in Bellingham. Has anyone been there? Most of you probably, yeah. It's a cute little town, right? Like, I worked at the bakery for most of high school, like, you know. But also has a very long history of racism, like, deeply racist place. It's doing its best to change, but if you are not familiar, I encourage you to look up that website. There's a beautiful timeline of it, beginning with Coast Salish peoples being removed from their homes, through everybody. There's some deep stuff here too, help yourselves to remember. Beginning with Coast Salish peoples removal, expulsion of South Asians, leading them to the mayor of the city giving a KKK clan member a key to the city and having a parade to honor and celebrate that group. Also, cross burnings in the 90s, along with much more recent things with anti-Islamic and hate. So that's where I grew up. And there's this sort of like quiet metric that I find Bellingham tends to hold its people to, of whiteness. You know, some of the good things that come out of Bellingham for me are most of my friends in high school and beyond, most of us were mixed, most of us had a parent that was white. And so racism is kind of infiltrated into our story collectively as Bellingham people through that a lot of times. So comes in shares that. So again, the title of my show is Wait, What Are You? Some other common questions that I would get asked is, where are you from? No, where are your parents from? No. Where are you really from? Like, what's your heritage? What's your ethnicity? Even just saying these questions out loud, I'm like, I hate it. Because the implied question is, why aren't you white? Why aren't you white enough? Why do you look ethnic? Why do you look exotic? For context, I hate that word, exotic. There's just a lot steeped into it, right? And most people don't necessarily know that straight out the gate, right? Like, sometimes I do think people genuinely come to me with that question of curiosity, like, how do we share culture? But context matters. It's usually white people, white women, white men, doesn't matter. It's usually the white people that ask me that. And with those P's, this is the first book that I made. It's huge, by the way. If you haven't seen it yet, this is me when my studio was still in my basement. And I wanted to make something larger than life, like make my stories bigger than me, because no one was listening to me. Like, this experience that I was having, I would get so gaslit, both by myself and others, and my family also. I was in 5th grade when 9/11 happened. My mom told me, don't tell anybody that we're Lebanese. She worked in the government, she was scared for her job. And so I learned from a very early age to just be white, like the best I could, right? But again, I look the way I look, and I can't control how other people perceive me, and I just say okay. I can't control that, and so I wanted to make a piece kind of about, like, you know, her gaze is looking somewhere else, but you're looking at her face and you're making your own assumptions about her. And within some historical storytelling, like Scheherazade is the narrator in 1001 Arabian Nights, like, are you familiar? Yeah, most people are, cool. Aladdin, Sinbad, those are, and like hundreds of other stories. And it's also centuries old, centuries of collecting stories that started in Egypt, carried across the Levant, and the narrator, Scheherazade, she, you know, lived in this world where the Sultan found out his wife was cheating, beheaded her, and decided to remarry every day and then behead his new wife each day. And so Scheherazade was next, and she worked with her sister to start telling interesting stories using the tools that she had to create interest so that she would leave on a cliffhanger and not die. And common, you know, commonly, I guess, what can I say, we celebrate how witty she was, how smart she was, how clever, like all of these attributes that, you know, are great. I'm glad she had them, but also, what if she didn't? She was living in fear every single night. Like, what if she was just a common person like the rest of us? What if she wasn't that smart? She'd be dead. And so I wanted this piece to kind of work in, you know, a lot of different symbols. So pomegranate's present, snakes are present. I'll get into more of that in a second. But I wanted that story to come through and kind of reflect a little bit of my own. Like, I'm constantly using the tools that I have available to me, but sometimes it's like not enough to get my story and my own like basic needs met. I think there's a video for this, but you can pretend, because I think it might be too hard to coordinate. I still have it on YouTube. I can send you the link if you ask. But essentially, I'm holding what's called a glass print frog. Print makers out there, just printing by hand this whole thing. This first piece I did by myself. The next 3 pieces, my beautiful partner McKenna helped me immensely because it's too much work. And again, thinking about stories and voices throughout history, a lot of women have been silenced, a lot of non-binaries have been silenced. I wanted to think about the mouth, my mouth, like what about speech, communication, visuals, whatever it is, like how have I been silenced? I'm thinking about that. Just wanted to reference some of the original artwork from 1001 Arabian Nights and the fabric, just so much fabric. It's something that all of us have touched at some point in our lives, like every single human being has touched fabric. So I wanted this piece to like have fabric in it, but I also wanted all the pieces to be printed on fabric for that reason. Something that's very accessible to everybody else, but given the context, you either will touch it or you won't touch it. In an art gallery, you're not gonna touch it. Well, maybe, but I do not. You could, you wear fabric, it's different symbolism, like I'm wearing the keffiyeh. It has different meaning for different people. And then the snake. So, Bellingham, Washington has garter snakes. They're perfectly harmless. I didn't know that snakes were like bad for a long time. I thought they're just kind of cool. Like I catch them as a kid and like, kind of play with them a little bit. I now know they're not like that everywhere, but as I got older and learned snakes are pretty much everywhere. I think they're not, in certain places that are extremely cold, but generally everybody has a connection to snakes also. And people always have different views, like, is it gonna be a scary thing? Is it gonna be a good luck thing? Is it like a religious thing? There's so many different avenues for people to put assumptions onto this creature. And so I often put the garter snake into my pieces, kind of reflect that. I feel like the garter snake that gets a lot of things thrown onto me, good or bad, but pretty harmless. And so here's a little sneakier one. I try to incorporate as many different little Easter eggs throughout my pieces as much as possible. So if you haven't seen the show yet, I encourage you to look for all these symbols to have fun. And then pomegranates. Pomegranates are such an important symbol for the Middle East, Syria, and also they're super sexual, and being a gay woman, I wanted to incorporate both of those things, and it's a symbol that's come up for me a lot. And like most of the symbols and pieces that you see in like the bigger format, they come from, you know, artworks that I've been making my whole life. Like I've been drawing things since I was 3 years old, and some of these things are repeated for me, and they've taken on different meaning for me as my life has gone on. So here's pomegranate. And I made it painstakingly with a Dremel. Again, this is a video, but you can pretend, you know, just very tiny little holes repeated. So each one of these little tiny dots is me, you know, kind of picking at it. So Medusa is the piece that I made next. It also took me the longest. All these pieces were a minimum of $100 a piece of just carving, let alone printing and all the other stuff that goes into it. But this one I think was the most emotionally taxing for me. And so Scheherazade, you notice the eyes were looking off to the side. You're seeing her face. Medusa is sort of an inverted version of that, but there are no eyes. So Medusa's story, there's so many variations. It's kind of the cool part about pulling from mythology. There's so many different variations, but the one that I kept gravitating towards was Medusa was raped and then punished and turned into a gorgon, specifically punished by Athena. And I think this piece was the most emotionally taxing because it was the one that I contended for myself. I am a rape victim. I am someone who suffered sexual assault. Unfortunately, I live with it every day in my body. I can feel myself shaking right now just like talking about it. But it's good for me to say out loud. And it's good for y'all to hear it too, because it's a thing that a lot of women experience a lot. But for me and many survivors, we don't necessarily consciously think about these things. A lot of us like kind of block the memory out. It comes out later. And so I wanted to record this in a huge format again. So pretty big pieces, larger than life, making this thing that like I feel so like intimately every single day out loud for other people to also see. But yeah, we carry it in our bodies, and so I put the two eyes into the body. You can kind of see it right here, and right there. Because our bodies remember everything. And I also wanted to, it's just a detailed shot of some of the snakes, but you can see that in person down there. But I also wanted to create a little bit of power around it too, because yes, I live with this every day, but no, I don't hate my body. No, I don't find being naked like a vulnerable thing. Like I'm great. But I do, you know, think about like tattoos, even like my own tattoos on my skin. I think of them as sort of like reclamation of my own skin, my own body, the way that I want to be intentionally hurt instead of by somebody else, but by myself. So tattoos are really important to me in this piece in particular, but all of the pieces and for me just in general. So some of those tattoos are, you know, we got the poppy, which, yep. So this is on the body, but this is a different version. I've been making poppies since I was like a little kid. There's something about this symbol of death that's always kind of resonated with me. And but it's also a symbol of life. Like the Flanders field poppies, you know, they grow on sites of lots of death, but they're growing, like they're choosing to like plant roots and, you know, share beautiful colors with us. And then dandelions. I'm very fond of dandelions. I think they're the coolest weed, frankly. They have medicinal properties. They grow pretty much anywhere. Like anywhere in the world, a dandelion is still a dandelion, right? Like, we recognize that. I think of myself as a dandelion. I think of a lot of folks that kind of grew up with nothing and then had to make the best of what they had. That's kind of the dandelion energy, right? And just like resilience. Pretty tired of being resilient, to be honest. Pretty tired. But I think it still matters. It's important that collectively we keep going, but also individually for me, I keep going. And then Persephone. So I'm kind of getting the hint of like mythological characters, right? Predominantly women. I wanted to pick stories that I heard growing up, but wanted to like give more authority and voice to these specific women because I internalized a lot of them as a kid, but didn't quite register what was happening when I was a kid, like thinking about these things. For example, like Scheherazade, Aladdin, Jasmine, watching all the Disney movies, like I thought they were great. Watching them as an adult and realizing like some of those racist things came through in that particular movie. They even put like a disclaimer on Disney Plus now. It says, this was made a long time ago. We don't like stand up to this anymore. And I'm like, oh, right. But I like grew up watching that, you know, like Jasmine's hot and sexy. Like that's, I guess, me, because other people started calling me Jasmine as a kid. And so like, there's a lot there. Being hypersexualized as a child, for starters, but then also how I think about myself. And then, you know, Medusa, likewise. But Persephone, I didn't really hear much as a kid. It came out later for me, kind of the overlap. But I was raised in a Catholic family. My mom's side of the family, my grandpa and his family specifically, left Lebanon because they were being killed for being Catholic. And so I grew up in the Catholic church. Like my grandparents went to church twice a week, kind of Catholic. I was an altar server from the second I was in second grade. And so I've had a pretty weird job of altar serving at funerals. So I have attended over 50 plus funerals in my life as a child. Some were for friends that I knew, unfortunately, but most were for strangers. And so I was, you know, in this strange place of being very comfortable with death and comfortable with crying through somebody else's death. It was a very strange experience, I think. But it influences a lot of like how I see things. And this is Rose of Lima, which if you don't know her story, you should look it up. It's wild. But I wanted to pull in some of these Catholic saint kind of iconography because as a kid, I didn't get to hear about any cool gay women in my life at all. Like those were so bad. But like I am a gay woman and I don't think I'm bad and like obviously no longer go to church or anything, but like I still love some of that artwork and that framing of you know, like the halo and like holding things as if they're precious and like commanding space in a different kind of way. I have intentionally chosen to make better eye contact with the viewer with this piece because I want it to be, you know, less of I'm a sad woman or something, but like no, I'm reclaiming a bit of death. I'm also reclaiming life, more importantly. There's cycle, there's change. It's not all bad, it's not all good. So I wanted to bring that in. You recognize the pomegranate again, but even more so queer-coded, you know, a little sexier. And the dead rabbit. So, you know, I think, I don't know if you guys know Joseph Beuys. He had this piece, I think it's called Talking Secrets to a Dead Hare. I might be saying that wrong, but he's holding this dead hare. He's got like hiding on his face. He also wears a lot of symbolism, long dead. But the idea that I take away from it is that even in death, this rabbit understands life better than a lot of humans. So I wanted to bring that energy forward too, and just also acknowledging like the sheer amount of death that I have encountered in my life. I used to have a pet rabbit. She is now dead, unfortunately. Winnie, just a silly little creature. You know, she's like a, I don't remember the Holland lump, I think, but like she had a little certificate of authenticity kind of crap, and but I just thought about how incredibly ridiculous she was as like a creature. That I like loved her so much, and just thinking about jackalope mythology, and like what happens if this like silly little creature uses the tools that she finds, even if they don't fit her, and like tries on protection, tries on being tough, being brave, being whatever. And so that comes through in a lot of my work. And lavender. So I think everyone pretty much has a connection to lavender. It smells great, it's very relaxing, but there's also like a deeply sapphic connection with lavender. Like the 60s, there was the lavender scare where everyone was trying to purge out any lesbians at all. And in the 70s, there was the lavender menace when feminists were trying to exclude lesbians from their movement, as they also excluded Black women. So there's a lot of like deeply sapphic meaning with lavender also. And I do have to say, it kind of tickles me when I see like straight women wearing little like tattoos of lavender. I'm like, yes. And violets. So Sappho, where sapphic comes from, she wrote to her lover, this is like centuries ago, by the way, about violets, like wearing crown of violets. And so this particular symbol is like deeply sapphic. It's like the oldest symbol you can possibly think of. So you'll see a lot of violets kind of in and around like the crown and all over my artwork in general. And poppies again. And then the white butterfly is more of a new symbol for me. My grandma died in 2020 and it wrecked me. She was the only adult figure in my life who told me my feelings were okay and valid, and that it was okay to cry, and it was okay to be me, essentially. She was incredible, and I miss her very much. So anytime I have a chance, I kind of put in the white butterfly and think of like her spirit as visiting. So there's an incredible artist named Sasha Baskin, and she told me once at this residency we both had that pop culture is modern day mythology, and I thoroughly stand by that. And Barbie, I think, was like the most fun for me to make. She was a deep queer root for me. When I was a little kid and had just like a bunch of Barbies, the Ken doll kind of stayed in the box, but I would play with the Barbies, they would kiss, be naked together, but like, I knew it was bad, quote unquote, even as a kid, so it was like secret. But like, I always loved Barbie. I thought it was great to have, all these different accessories. I specifically had this Barbie, this sweetheart Barbie, which I based this piece off of, like the dress and the way the posing worked. I actually found one on eBay for like $10. It was great. But yeah, I loved all the accessories. I loved the nails. I loved all the makeup and like the pretty things. But in my family, women were pretty things, were laughed at, were invisible, were seen as less than. Gender was very firmly kept in my family. Like I didn't get hugs from any men in my family once my boobs came in. It was, not great to be a woman there. And so I tried to distance myself from being a woman as a kid, and into young adulthood. I think a lot of women do actually go through that, where you try to like push away the femininity. You say like, don't wear that short skirt, don't wear that low cut whatever, like wear makeup in a certain way so you don't get the wrong attention. Like all things that like older women usually teach us as like a safety thing. But what I learned is that it didn't matter. Didn't matter what I wore, didn't matter what I said, didn't matter what I did. I was viewed as a woman that was objectified and got grabbed, got harassed, got raped, got all sorts of things. Like, it didn't matter. I had a boyfriend, didn't matter. And so my other reference here, I'm trying to see, sunglasses. Like throughout the Matrix, like you're wearing your glasses, it's like protection. But when you have them off, you're a little more vulnerable, right? And so I like to think of this Barbie piece like direct eye contact with you, but also like leaning forward. There's a little bit more vulnerability, but there's like confidence in them, and my own version of protection in this vulnerability. Like, I'm good. Also, just thinking about like honoring queer history, right? Like during World War II, pink upside down triangle meant gay, killed. Quickly, amongst many other things that are awful. And so I do try to throw in, homages to like my queer ancestors that aren't blood, maybe, but did exist. And I guess I'll back up a little bit too. I do want to say with Barbie being a queer, fun icon, I also found that once I started to connect more with my own femininity, like do things that I think are fun, and wear whatever I wanted, I also was finding I was more at peace with myself, and therefore, you know, attracting more people who were also at peace with themselves, and like through that finding my chosen family. And so this rabbit keeps showing up in a lot of different parts of my work, because I kind of think of the white rabbit as a guide to the unconscious, you know, thinking about how I've worked through like so many different aspects of my life, through a lot of pain, but still kind of coming through, and then ultimately finding safety within other folks like me, and just, you know, good friends, chosen family. In this case, the rabbit is in a field of poppies. This piece is downstairs also. You know, just layers and layers and layers within all these different works. She is. Yeah. Also, one thing to note with this piece is that I am trying my best to find like that balance between like my Middle Eastern Catholic roots and my deeply Sapphic roots. I don't want to speak with my family because they do not accept that part of me, but yet I'm here because of them. Like they did raise me, they did, you know, technically shelter me. And so I wanted to think about like what would go into a locket for myself with this piece. And I think those two things together make a lot of sense to me, even though it's not necessarily making sense to those participating in their work. I think, yeah. And then the hyacinth, which I don't have a picture of, but that's what I had on here. Hyacinth are native to Lebanon and Syria. I wanted to leave the bulb intact and the roots intact, but they're also in a little bundle with lavender. So again, just like in multiple different ways, kind of claiming my own roots and claiming the way that I get to see the world. And yeah, proud of it. Okay, thank you.
I'm sure there are a lot of questions, so we should open it up. I would just like to note that the most common response for people who were able to spend time in Nikki's exhibition was the thrill that they got when they realized, and also the self-portraiture that although you're doing mythological figures with your own portraits in them, and they're really good. They're really nice renderings. I mean, it's, but when people got to Barbie, and I had a couple of people in different ways tell me that they feel that Nikki has helped shed light on their own stories. Maybe they're different personal histories, but they have their own trauma or difficult situations. And when they got to Barbie, a couple of different people on different days said, I didn't realize I could actually arrive somewhere else. Not that you get over or get away from history, but this idea that you could define and find yourself in that way. And it was really impactful with visitors. And I just want to add that because a lot of people we offer to help interpret the show or introduce Nikki. She's not here. But they, and some people just want to read or don't read at all. But those who kind of stuck with it and stayed a while, spend a lot of time just looking at that and imagining like how would they create their own self-portrait.
Oh, I love that.
I want to thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, Barbie is meant to be about choice, right? Like these are all decisions that I've made, difficult decisions, right? Like, it's really hard to heal. I'm still always will be in process of that, but like, yeah, that delights me. I'm also, I guess I should also share about the little flowers. That's something that I think I keep getting questions about, like why would I bother to put those little, do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen them? Yeah, those little flowers. I mean, for starters, I love flowers. I love wildflowers. I love all sorts of botanicals and things. My favorite things in the world is when McKenna like just grows me flowers, but she does. She just grows me 50 different kinds of flowers and curates bouquets for me. I am not joking. It's the best. But I wanted to kind of get a little bit of that feeling for other people too. And like, you all know what flowers are. Like, even if you don't know what kind or what species, you can look at it, connect with it on your own level without the artwork being involved, and then maybe start to pull in your own versions of like what that means for you, and then find it in my artwork and then put your own stories together. So yeah, I really wanted accessibility to be a part of it. Like, I really hate walking into art places or any space. It could be a formal institution or like an informal. I'm so sitting there. And like, there's so much like esoteric, frankly, bullshit that's like going on, and like some of it's really important and very historic and it matters, but then why is it every single time that it has to be like that? Like, I want my artwork to be accessible to anyone walking in, and if it doesn't quite click with you, like that's fine, but at least you have a starting point. So, yeah.
I'm a docent, and I want to validate and reinforce what Greg was saying. I've taken a number of people through your exhibit, and it is complex, but I get the same reaction from people. Number one, they want to know what you put on the flowers because it's shiny and beautiful.
Yeah.
And number two, they get to Barbie and they feel like they've gone through a process with you. Maybe are identifying with that process, but they've shared such delight in Barbie.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's the most fun to make. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
What do you put on?
It's really nothing crazy. I didn't realize it'd be such a thing for people. And it's just UV resin.
Okay.
That's it. Like, I bought it online somewhere. I don't even know. Because it's like generic enough.
It's
You can find it
beautiful.
anywhere. Yeah. But I only painted a few. Ma'am here painted like 80% of them because I was like, I have no time. I have to carve these. Like, one of these blocks took me 200 plus hours, like close to 300 if I'm being realistic. I was like, I have no time, but I want to finish it, but I do think it's important. So like, the reason they stay open, they are a little bleached now, but like they stay open because she like created the little scaffoldings for them to dry on, and then that's like UV light to harden. So like, it is a whole thing. Deeply indebted. I did buy her a KitchenAid, but it's still not enough.
Nikki, I think the use of fabric and also bringing in the flowers and that, it's really helped to make it very personal and something that is also, you know, beautiful, has its own strength in its own way, but it's also fragile. And on the field trips with kids, it was really interesting because, you know, they can look at the symbolism in the prints and find those things, the snakes and the pomegranates and everything. But when they could come over and see the they just kind of started going back and forth, and you could see their minds turning about symbol, you know, so we could get into these conversations on symbolism and what symbol, you know, what reflects your life, you know, what if you put something on a shelf to show people what would it be. So it's been an extremely successful show. I wasn't sure we could come up with a third grade version of the field trip tour because of the content and your history and everything, but we were able to talk about how someone, you know, how do you present yourself, your story, what is your story?
Yes.
First of all, I just want to say personally that I grew up in Los Angeles and I went to a high school that was all white, all Christian, and violets were our symbol. And yeah, so I have to think about that. But as a printmaker, you know, you could work in any kind of, and you can, I mean, you do etching, you do the whole gamut of printmaking. How is it personally important to you to work so monumentally in wood and to hand print it? Because of course you could go smaller and just throw it through a press.
Yeah, oh for sure. Question. I think So woodblock came into my life when I was in college. I went to the University of Washington, and Claire Cowley, anyone knows her, she's an incredible woman, also an artist in Seattle. She showed me how to do woodblock for the first time, and I immediately gravitated towards it because it was a way. I'll look up and see if I can find you my drawings, but my drawings tend to be emotional. I don't know how to quite describe that, but this one's pretty tame. But generally when I'm like off the cuff drawing, there's a lot of marks, like a ton of marks. I was trying to be a good drawer. With my drawings for these woodblocks, I wanted to have a little bit more clarity, but at the time, when I first learned woodblock, it was a lot of scribbles and like building up of images from just like density of line work. And so woodblock was this wonderful way to take I would draw when I had big feelings, essentially. So I take these feelings and then I put them into this more, still organic and still like using my hand, but like a more graphic kind of visual representation. And it works so well with my brain and like my PTSD to have, chaos, to a different kind of chaos, but like something that I could remove, like removing the material itself and like finding that meditative state was like super important to me. And like it was I'm removing something that wasn't my body, right? Like I was able to put this into something else and it was super critical. And so I wanted to do that on a bigger scale because these works are like, they're pretty tame in terms of like complexity goes, but they didn't feel tame. Like they felt really big for me. All the emotions working through, all these different memories that like sometimes a new memory would come up and have to sort through all those feelings came with. It wasn't always good feelings, and so I wanted to give my body a space to do that through all of this. Like, this is deeply personal to me and like deeply vulnerable. My nervous system gets way too out of whack unless I'm actually doing some carving with it too. That's not as important. And the physicality of it, like there's something really nice about, even with printing, like it's exhausting, but like it's really nice to be able to put the whatever's inside into a physical motion of printing. Yeah. Yeah, Emerson.
So a couple things. One, as a person that's been your student, this is so cool to see, and I love seeing how you encourage your students to do these kind of mind-mining activities of what symbol speaks to how you're feeling today, or how you are perceived by others, or like you're a fantastic instructor in that way, so it's cool to hear. A technical question is when you have these little fine lines, how are you doing that? Like you have, they look like they're drawn, but they're carved. Like in the bottom of the fabric down there, I'm just so in awe at how you make your woodcuts look like drawings.
Okay, so it was hard. I'm trying to see if I put it in any like close-ups. I don't think, okay, this is probably close enough. So I had to think through how I wanted to make like the fabric and then the skin different. The way it just starts looking really flat. It still can be a little flat. I think it makes more sense when you see it in person because it's there's more dimension to it. But I just outlined each one with a knife tool, carving with little bits out and carefully removing. And I chose to do that on the fabric parts and then on the face part, which I'll wait a bit. So you can see here, I'm not leaving behind little lines. I am, but I'm using cross hatching more. I'm using like the V gouge, for example, those sort of makers. Yeah, so I'm like using repeated lines and cross hatching, thinking about the more I remove, the more white I leave behind, or the more white I am creating. And then the inverse essentially with like these little scribbly bits. Also just really trying to think about my drawing ahead of time. I think like So, referencing my drawing again and again and again. Like, so the more I did this, the better my drawings got for the translation, because I knew it could sometimes get a little messy in the woodblock itself if I wasn't paying like strict attention to how did I make the face look different than the fabric, for example, and other things. But yeah, trying to just have the drawing nearby, even just on my phone, and then being, thinking like, if I remove like this, it will leave this amount of white space, and if I do like this, it will leave this amount of like dark ink black parts. So yeah, it was hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard. Yeah.
And it's all reverse anyway, kind of, isn't it? Like when
Oh,
you're
yeah.
cutting, whatever you cut, like in drawing, it's a positive mark, but whatever you cut, it won't show the block.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a lot of line flipping. And with portraits, you have to be careful when you reverse them, because it looks different. Like, you read faces, like the minute you're drawing that, yes, like, or if you invert a face, it looks different. It doesn't necessarily read like the face. So then it's like extra important that I do my steps correctly, because if I do the drawing and then I don't transfer it inverse on my block, then it comes out inverse. Yeah. Yeah. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I definitely have to do harder stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you see the series growing and adding more women, or if you thought about that beyond this group.
I think
What
right now,
direction we might go in?
totally, yeah. I feel very tired. The show's been up for a couple months and it's been great. But I think the part that makes me feel tired is like the emotional kind of suck out of it. It's all like good. I think it's good to get more folks and eyes on the work and like getting to talk about it more. But I think there's a certain part of me that wants to just go hide in a hole and not talk about anything, not make anything like terribly political for a while. But I don't know is the answer. I feel okay with where it's at right now. I think there's a nice little grouping of things. I could see myself going in a direction with it. I could also see like taking some elements of this particular body and then pulling them into something else. Like, I think working through Persephone in particular, thinking about like Catholic heritage is something that's come up through this opportunity from Greg to work through a lot of these things. As I, for many years, just my brain could not think about Catholicism. I couldn't do it. It was coming through my work, but I wasn't registering it. Like, there's so much, frankly, trauma buried within that, let alone all the other trauma it has from So I think maybe kind of tailoring off of some of those ideas and pulling that to a separate body could be really interesting for me. Yeah.
That's a beautiful show.
Thank you. Yeah. It's pretty good.
I'd like to also point out, when we were hanging the show, it's one thing we visited Nikki's studio and I understood the, different prints we would get. She was great at sending images and everything. But when you have the physical work there, it's a whole different thing. You can't come in with a preconceived notion of how it all lays out. And Nikki had one suggestion to pull the first piece forward, not against the wall. But I think that changed the dynamic. It also made it made the fabric come alive more, but it changed the dynamic of the visitor, because people want to come in and they want to know the story. Start here, just go around the room like that and you're done, bye-bye. And people then kind of started going back and forth, because there wasn't just one way to view it. It's not a chronological show in that sense. And so it's really fun to work with the artists too, and just sort of see, we've been open 12 years, and every single time we rotate shows, I learn a new way I could display something. It's like, well, gosh, could have thought of that, but but that was that one idea, and then also adding the other piece in the window, and then your fabric version inside. And
Oh, yeah.
remember when we walked outside and we could see them both just
Yes,
like,
it was like a
that-
weird happy accident. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, also Greg and Joshua came into McKenna and I split studio. It's very tiny, like 10 by 12, and I had all these wood blocks out, and Greg very graciously was trying to stay at like the only spot available. Yeah. Yeah, it was fun to hang it. Thank you for giving me a lot of liberal license to do what I wanted. And you're nervous about the flowers too, but
No, not nervous.
Okay.
It's interesting, as Nikki noted, some have faded, you'll see. If the show were up for, 1 month, like in maybe a regular gallery you might see, you'd have one experience. And this just changes slightly, over time. It's kind of interesting, like, the question is this kind of part of it? Like, do memories fade, or do things evolve, or it's another way to look at it. But I think it's interesting anytime you're using organic materials, how long the show lasts.
Greg, I'm gonna tell you a secret.
Yeah.
Don't be mad. I kind of hoped that the pomegranates would mold. They didn't. I'm a little surprised. I was hoping they would just rot.
But I did ask you, well, what about backup plan? Like, do you have any extras? Like, if someone, because kids touch things and, whatever. And you said, oh, no, I'm not going to worry about that. And I wondered if you just wanted to see what would happen.
I don't know. I like a little chaos. Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of like affirm what I felt and saw through your work, because like, I don't know, you just explained it so beautifully. I think the fact that you chose to have a piece in the center of the room really affirmed your story of people judging you first by looks. And then having the written explanation of your pieces behind it just felt like such a powerful, thoughtful way to present exactly like the message you're trying to share. And that is like the beauty of artists, and you're living that by such a beautiful example of sometimes things are really hard to explain through words, and you have also been judged so quickly by visuals, but you have taken ownership and power back by then speaking through your visuals, and people are so privileged to get to receive it. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've had a lot of positive reception from the show, but I think one of the things that have come out for me through it that I wasn't anticipating, a lot of queers have come forward and like shared their own stories of like how they got to be where they are, and like, oh, my heart. Also a lot of mixed race folk too, like a lot of people who I think kind of similar stories to mine of like, which I didn't realize. I thought I was just kind of being that light-skinned girl in the room with too much energy. It's a thing, colorism is a thing, we need to respect that, but like also it's a real thing that we do need to talk about. And like, I don't know, like one of my close friends, she's 20 years older than me, and she's Indian, but she's like, yeah, Nikki, the next generation is looking at you because our kids are starting to look more like you, kind of thing. And that hit me in a weird way. Like, oh, I see, I think. But also just that lack of awareness for some folk on how to talk to us, and how to, again, share culture without imposing their culture, their whiteness generally, but not always. My advice is don't ask about it. Get to know the person. Don't have like hidden questions about it because you think you deserve to know like why somebody looks the way they do. You don't. But instead, like, frankly, with me, it comes out pretty quick. If you just wait, I will talk about it. So just like be patient and kind, and like shut up. And you will be, you'll create a safer space for us to actually like want to talk to you about this. Because it's something like I deal with every day. I don't get to change my face. I mean, I guess I could, but that's not my budget. Yeah.
if, any more questions or comments?
I kind of going on the race aspect, that title of, wait, what are you really? Like, yeah, all the time, all the time. And then, you know, they learn what you are, oh, really? And that just, it meant so much to me, and seeing the, I don't know, the happiness or the confidence, that's what I'm looking for in Barbie. That's, while still also like looking different, you know, that
Yeah.
it's awesome, yeah.
If everyone would like to please join us downstairs, and we'll have food and drink and a chance to talk to Nikki more personally. So thank you.